Ladies and gentlemen, we are back in the new year. Welcome to 2020. Egon, welcome to you. I'm sure it will be an exciting year with a lot of volatility.
Yes, Jan, we've been waiting for things to happen for a while, but it looks like we could have not just volatility, but we could have a one-way move in precious metals up and a one-way move down in stocks. So yeah, we could have an interesting time.
Still, the stocks are at record high, driven by trade talks, as we discussed this in the past. Nevertheless, at the 8th of January, we saw an event after killing the Iranian general by the USA in Iraq. The gold price had a big spike on one day and went to 1,613, only to drop after that to 1,500 and something. That was a big intraday movement, and it took out some overheating from the market, but it showed us what we can expect once the gold price comes or moves upwards. So I think we can expect more of such movements this year. And I'd like to show to our audience the brand new record high that the gold price made in euro, which was not communicated at all by the mass media, or very little communicated. Here again, here we see the gold price chart in euros from the year 2000 on, and I call this a nice ride. And for everybody who is forced to hold this euro currency that many didn't want, it was a very nice run, and I think it's outpaced the DAX, even the DAX.
Yes, well, as you said, euro made a new high, but we already had made a higher high than the 2012 high that we see on the chart here. And even today, after having pulled back since the high last week, that was caused by the political event in Iran and Iraq, nevertheless, we're still at a higher level today than we were in 2011-12 in the euro. Correctly, as you say, this will continue, but I think investors should be very careful in buying gold on political news, and this is what we had now, the political news with this Iran-Iraq murder, because gold doesn't move up really on political news more than temporarily, which means that if you have, I'm not talking about a nuclear bomb or something, a major event, but if you have a normal political event or a killing like we saw here, that is not something that drives gold longer term. Gold is not a political metal, it's a monetary metal. Gold reflects the destruction of paper money, and that's why we saw a temporary peak in gold. That would have happened anyway. The cycles told me that gold was on the way up, and so we had a temporary jump, which was a bit bigger than it should have been, and so therefore it pulled back. But the trend, from a technical point of view, the trend is very clearly up now. It's going to continue up strongly, and of course, fundamentally, we know all the governments in the world have to print more and more money. And the Fed's actions in America, they continue with their liquidity injections into the market in America, the Fed. So that's what we should look at from the point of view investing in gold, because we are buying gold to protect against the debasement of the currencies, and that is happening now daily and will accelerate both in the US and in Germany and in the EU, because all the banking system in Europe is under pressure too. So we will see more and more injection of liquidity and money printing on the European side also, and that's what's going to see gold going up to much higher levels also in 2020 and later, of course.
While we went into the new year, also the new law came into power that the over-the-counter physical purchases of precious metals have a new limit. It's now at 1,999 euros in Germany, and we discussed this in our November interview already, so people who want to get in detail can go back to November. The Bundesrat in Germany even wanted to lower the ceiling to 1,000 euros, and they had no proof of any massive misuse of those physical purchases. Nevertheless, they pushed it through. So it is my impression, and I think many other critical observers of the nowadays politics will agree on that, that the ordinary citizen who is caring for his own wealth or who is thinking about what's going on in the background is the target of the state, and clearly the target of the state. And I have put together for our audience a little list with over-the-counter businesses where you can still buy gold, silver, whatever, anonymously. And I show this list quickly. Here, Egon, I just mentioned the new ceiling or the new limit is in Germany 1,999, but in Austria, close to us, it's 10,000 minus one, and in your home country, Switzerland, it's 25,000 Swiss francs. Those are right now, I think, roughly 23,000 euros. And even in Liechtenstein, it's 10,000 Swiss francs. So for people who still want to buy anonymously, they have chances. In particular, I would say if you live in southern Germany, otherwise it wouldn't make much sense to have big travel expenses. But I think this is something that people who want to invest could consider. What's your opinion?
Well, yeah, the official limit in Switzerland is still 100,000, although some sellers might not accept that big amount, but that's what it is now. But from next year, it goes down to 15,000 Swiss francs in Switzerland from January 2021, which is still higher, of course, than in all other countries. Or in Europe. But you know, the important thing I think is for people not to worry so much about that limit. Of course, it's nice to be able to buy an asset anonymously without registering it with the state. But nevertheless, the key is here whether you have to register or not what you buy. And of course, our investors start at 200,000 euros roughly, which means that that's above the limit anyway. But of course we don't report to German authorities. We don't report to anyone. But anyone coming to us has to have declared money, of course. But nevertheless, the important thing is to get your money out of the banking system. That's the most important thing, because banks the reason why they're doing this, they're restricting continuously cash transactions because there's going to be a run on cash in the future, and they don't want anybody to have the ability to take major amounts of cash out of the system. But that's why, while you still can take your cash out and buy gold, even if it's reported, I would recommend that people do that today, because it's going to get a lot harder in the coming months and years to do that.
And Egon, as you just did, we always talk about insurance, and insurance is recommended for your car, for your house, for your health, for everything. And it's usually is advertised by the big mass media. You see advertisements all the time for all kinds of insurances. Of course, not for your money, because your gold insurance, your money insurance is a danger for the state or for the functioning of the normal banking business. Nevertheless, I found something very interesting. While the mass media and those who control the mass media, do not want you or I, the little ordinary citizen, to purchase gold in significant amounts, or the mass of the people, because a lot of people buying little amount of gold makes also a big amount of gold. they do not want this. And while they want to prevent the people from buying gold, they do this themselves. And I have a very interesting proof found here in a Yahoo article. I showed a graphic first. Here, Egon, I found this article in Yahoo Finance. I will link it also below the video. We see here the build up or sales of ETFs, gold ETFs, and the trade implied vaulted gold build up. And interesting is that the ETFs, here between those years, the ETFs lost volume and the gold held in bunkers also fell. But here we see an interesting disconnect. Both is rising, but the chart of the vaulted gold is rising much faster and is a lot more gold in vaulted, or a lot more gold in vaults than it is in ETFs now. And this is for me a proof what we discussed previously, that those elite himself or itself is not trusting the ETFs and is rather building their own vaults and bunkers and putting physical gold in there.
Yes. So just to point out, Jan, this is not the total gold in ETFs or in private vaults, the increase.
This is the change. Yes, the build or the, it's not the total. Yes, correct.
Yes, it's the increase. But yes, people are, of course, right. Now, people now start to understand, at least the big investors start to understand that if you buy an ETF, all you have is a paper asset. And you have to get hold of money, or you don't even get gold delivered against that paper asset. But even if you want to cash it in, you have to go through the financial system. And that's why, and also most ETFs probably don't have the gold. We know, for example, that during last summer and early autumn of 2019, ETFs values were going up quite dramatically. But when we spoke to the Swiss gold refiners, they told us that they have seen no buying from the ETFs. As a matter of fact, the buying that they saw was very, very weak generally. So that means that when the ETFs have increased their holdings in gold, is actually come from probably gold that was lent to them by central banks via the bullion banks, via HSBC or JP Morgan or Barclays, because these banks hold gold for central banks. And what they do is they lend it out then to the ETFs, and probably they lend it out more than once. So the ETF gold has just been borrowed by the ETF companies, and also borrowed by other investors. So I'll be very careful with holding an ETF, because you're not holding physical gold, and this is what investors are catching on to now, the bigger investors, and that's why you saw the privately vaulted gold is going up more faster. And I think people are right. You mustn't. ETF is not holding physical gold at all. It's holding a paper gold within the financial system. So that is not wealth preservation. That is not insurance. And I would recommend people not to hold an ETF.
And what is also interesting, and it can be read in the article where this gold is mentioned, in the article is also written that in general, the demand for bunkers has increased dramatically in the past years. A bunker is not an inexpensive thing, and it's costly, and you have to move a lot of ground. But those people, it seems they prepare for something significant to happen, and they do not do this only for storing gold. Well, we will see. I think 2020 will be an exciting year, a very volatile year. I hope we get well through it. And as you said, Egon, people who want to buy gold, if they can do it anonymously, well, okay. Otherwise, the big brother is more or less everywhere anyway, so they should use the time. Any final statement, Egon?
Yes, I think I probably will talk about that more next time. This is a critical time in markets as I see it now. fundamentally, markets are ready to crash at any time. I'm talking about stock markets, financial markets. But they've now made new highs. A lot of stock markets in the last few days, even yesterday, many markets made new highs and then backed off. But I think we could be at a very important turning point now. Some of my technical analysis are telling me that we are now starting or finishing the up market in stock markets, and we are now going to start a very serious bear trend. And I think that's something that we will talk more about next week, but that's very important. And also that is also confirmed by, if you take stock market against gold, I look at mainly Dow Jones against gold, but the Dow-Gold-Ratio, but you can look at any stock market and the against gold. And I think that is now also, gold has outperformed all other assets since 2000, year 2000. But right now, I think we're going to see an acceleration of the downtrend of all stock markets against gold. So again, that's a very interesting movement, very important one that investors should focus on. And we will talk more about that next week also, Jan.
We will do, Egon. And still the shareholders of Apple and Tesla are laughing, but our time will come. Thank you, Egon, and till next time.
All right. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.